Hello. Today, we are Adventuresome Reviews, ladies and gentlemen. And we are reviewing Beggar's Rebellion by Levi Jacobs. Unlike the last video where we were reviews Adventuresome, reviewing some other book whose name I have forgot. Why on earth would we name ourselves Reviews Adventuresome? Because we're Yoda. No, we are not Yoda. We will never be Yoda. Green is a terrible color. Until you wake up painted green. No, even then it's a terrible color. Green has no redeeming value. Okay, so actually no. Green has quite a bit. I would argue photosynthesis is a redeeming value. Okay. My wisdom. I admit, prevails. I was just completely BSing. Green has quite a bit of redeeming value. What's a color that has absolutely no redeeming value? You gave me nothing to work with. I had to completely just make up lies and spew falsehoods. Orange. No, orange has redeeming value because of sunsets and such not. It's hard to find a color with no redeeming value. Yeah, you chose a terrible discussion. Just terrible. Like Terribly. Much like your spelling. My spelling is an acquired taste. More it is cultivated. No, more like cultured. Acquired taste, not insulting. Perfect. Purrfect. I wouldn't say your spelling is an acquired taste so much as in desperate need of acquiring an education. Nonsense. Anyway, in case you missed through all my shenanigans and whatever nonsense, we are reviewing Beggar's Rebellion by Levi Jacobs. And since we already got the kerfuffles and whatnot out of the way, we'll leap straight into the synopsis. Yes. Boing. Yes. The Consulate controls everything but the truth. I have nothing except my discovery, but with this I shall destroy an empire. Tai Kulga lost the rebellion and his best friend on the same day, stripping him of the will to live, even as a strange power flooded his bones. When the friend returns as a spirit guide, it feels like a second chance, but his friend is not who he says, and the Consulate is not done oppressing his people. To save the rest of his friends, dying in a Consulate's prison camp, Tai must find the last of the rebels and convince them to attempt a jailbreak. Along the way, he meets Illumia Aigla, runaway consulate daughter posing as an accountant to escape her family and the avarice of the capital. Curious about the link between spirit guides and magic, her insights earn her a place among the rebels, and along with Tai's new power, help turn the tide against the oppressors. But as the rebels begin to repeat the consulate's mistakes, Tai and Illumia face a dire choice: confront the past they run from, or become the monsters they fight. Rebellion! Praise the rebel king. All in all, the synopsis is pretty good. Yeah. It stretches a little bit here and there, but not really anything worth noting. I did not realize that was her real name. It's not mentioned once in the entire book. Oh no, it's mentioned a few times. It is? Yeah. Her spirit companions calls her a few times. You clearly most typically, wrong. She's known as Ella, right? Or yeah, something like that. It's been a while since I read it. Somebody took it. You actually, I can't understand what you're saying there. Okay, let me rephrase that. Forever. Yeah, when you do the coughing thing, book. You actually have to go forever. Make it obvious. Not I'm actually censoring you with a look of grievous censor. It bounces off me and censors yourself. I go cross. You are censored. It actually took me much longer to finish the book than it should have. Not that I had any like determined time period to finish the book. It just because the book is actually really quite good. Yes. It might prove slightly like unappealing when first reading the synopsis because it's another rebellion book. And while it doesn't never quite shakes the whole this is a rebellion story, not cliche but archetype, I was never egregiously bothered by the rebellion because of the way the author brought in ancillary details and plot points that helped make the rebellion a far more interesting conflict. It mentions it in the synopsis how I can't forget my prop. Ah, you're finally wearing them. I was always going to wear them. I just feel this is actually perfect because it's like I'm your spirit guide. Yeah, that's not the right way. My spirit guide would not be a cat with pink rosebud ears. It's not cat ears, they're devil horns. We're made out of poisonous, venomous, evil roses that are going hissing at you. But how wise I am. I refuse. I will accept a dragon or a badger as a spirit guide. Nothing less. I'll take a gargoyle. Can't put this up here because it's going to be hard to balance, but we will leave it there for now. Just pretend I'm wearing the gargoyle. Okay. So one of the things that really helped gather interest for the rebellion is the it was a continuous plot point throughout the story about how the rebellion was stooping to lows and it was becoming more in its desperation to defeat the councilate. It was crossing lines it really shouldn't be, and so the main character Ty is constantly struggling with this, and the other character Ella / Lumia is constantly throwing this in his face. So throwing, though not that aggressively, she's just constantly mentioning it. And so this is the morality of their conflict is constantly in question throughout the book. And as opposed to just like, we are good, they are evil, ha! And so you see the main characters constantly struggling and to find new and better ways to wage this rebellion that aren't hurting the innocents or the bystanders. And everybody else is just saying, it's constantly saying, if you find an alternate route, we will do it. But none of them are willing to put into the effort to do it to help figure it out. And so you have, and he's not, and it's not, he doesn't have any of these flashes of insight that solve anything. Even in the climax of the book, he really does not find a solution to this problem. Correct. And so that's a really enjoyable facet to the book that helps. I wouldn't say I like the facet. It felt a little bit too, I want to say one-dimensional, but one-sided. He was the only one there striving to find a way, and every other character was, while if you find a better way, we'll do it, but they are all adamantly just, no, it was so there was no, it was never really given a chance to become defining because there was never any chance for it to become more than just his opinion. It never really affected the book. Even at the very end, it never did. Yeah, it never, and so continuing on, basically, it just never really became more than a superficial plot point. Right. It didn't spawn any conflict among the rebellion. At both you had the surrounding council people. Ty says, "We need to do better." Half the court shakes their head yes. Literally, you have people in the background just saying, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." And then you have the people who are against it just shaking their heads, says, "No, we don't have the resources to do that." And there's no. So it's still enjoyable. Just I would have liked it to be more involved with the story than as a coat of paint. The part about the story that I actually really enjoyed was Ella's perspective of it. Both how she was on the inside
as opposed to, she wasn't one of the fighters in the rebellion. No, she was inside the consulate doing various things, and her entire story and the general motivations was really enjoyable for me. A natural progression, really involved. All of her decisions mattered. Her actions mattered and had consequences and pushed her story forward.
And her successes actually
felt meaningful, and you could see how she was advancing and how she was fighting, and the people she interacted with weren't entirely good or entirely evil. They were a mixed bag, and they interacted with her in meaningful ways, as opposed to Ty's interactions, which were largely superficial interactions of one camp or the other.
All Ty's half of the story suffered from the fact that an overabundance of characters. So at best you got glancing impressions of personality or morality, and that's it. One of the characters he interacts with relatively frequently throughout the book is a healer who pretty much just slaps up with it and says, do better. That's the entirety of her character, or that she gets him out of scrapes when he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much all you can expect from Ty's side of things. Ella, on the other hand, she has a much smaller, a much smaller cast, and you get to know the characters a lot better, and she interacts with them in a much more meaningful
It's less
way.
that you get to know the characters better, it's more the characters have a meaningful role in the story.
And they do have a slightly more overt personality that actively affects her story. One of her earliest antagonists, is dislikable, unnerving, creepy, powerful. He gets her at an incredible disadvantage through underhanded means, and she spends the entire book trying to get out from under this. And he's not even the main villain. He was an incredibly enjoyable part of the story. And his power as a villain, like I said, he's not a major villain, right? But his power as a villain helped solidify... because Ella is obviously part of the rebellion, or part of the rebellion. She's kind of straddling...
She's an informant.
Yeah, but she's kind of straddling the line, right? And she's one of those people who wants to reform the consulate through political and activism.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But through her interactions with this minor villain, you really get to see how the consulate can be toxic and is just evil, or just too focused on profit. That's the consulate's main
hyper-capitalism.
Right, and without any sorts of checks and balances. And even the checks and balances I do have in place, it's that surface level checks and balances because all the houses break them.
Another thing I really enjoyed about the story is the world was actually really well designed. With how, not only just how the characters inhabited and how the story reflected it, there was just multiple layers of how the world built in upon itself. From the consulate's hyper-capitalism, and then the magic system. The magic system is you eat some herbs, some weed, you smoke a pipe, and then you gain limited time of special abilities. And so for a long time, people didn't realize you could do this with the weeds and the plants. But then they discover that you can, and so then consulate collapses on this region, because this is the region where the plant, it's called Ura, grows. And so that's the entire reason the consulate is occupying this. And so they have these mines where they send people into to grasp, to dig up and farm the Ura. And that's a huge plot point for the rebellion, because there's nonsense that's involved with Ura and furthering the rebellion and the consulate, but it interlocks and it interacts, and Ura is expensive, so characters don't have access to their ability at all the time. And so what it means is that the various plot points, the consulate, the rebellion, the Ura, the magic stuff, they interlock, they interact, and it's enjoyable and it's nice because it's thought out and it makes sense. And there's just more to it. Like the consulate, you get to see the consulate through the lawful interactions and the unlawful interactions, and it makes sense, but it's multiple layers and degrees. And you get to interact with all of it, and it ends up making a really well-developed, coherent world that...
And the consulate comes across as a villain that a lot of times you have...
Without being a personal, I am so evil villain. it comes out as it's intended to, a aggressively capitalistic society that
And it
doesn't
works
care.
well because it works better than many organizational enemies are. It's a distant enemy that nevertheless has presence and threat and builds antagonism toward itself in a way that many distant enemies do not. And continuing on with the story, with how the world building, the author did a great job of seeding this in the story, where it's like not just massive exposition dump, massive expedition.
There was just enough exposition dumps to give you a grasp of what was going on.
The entire world was built so beautifully and subtly that there was never once like world building or just never slowed down the story. And
to express that point, I think it's another distinction between Ty and Ella. Where Ella's story takes place is a lot more interesting than where Ty's takes place. Most of the world building comes from Ella's perspective. Ty is fights and a random cave. Ella, she's on a barge doing illegal accounting work. Then she's in a black site for illegal accounters working because the person forced her into a basically indentured servitude. And then she's in the heart of the Imperium, and her story takes place in not necessarily strictly unusual environments, but environments that bear interest.
And her course of environment is where 60% of the world's of the world building comes through. But it's never the author telling you this is world building. It's you see it almost, you come into interact with it and you learn about it through interacting with these things. That's a much nicer way to build the world.
Very fun too. It's very enjoyable. A slight criticism I had is there's several high impact power moments throughout the book, and a lot of the time, like, you have the peak moments throughout the book as you usually do, and a lot of the time they revolved around the same mechanic of overcoming the boundary. And it wasn't necessarily unpleasant, it just recycled the same high point.
One of the main ones I encountered with Ty's book is that one of the chief impetuses for his choices and actions is that he adopts 3 kids, right? These kids are plot devices. They have names and that's it.
They do have token personality, token individualism.
But not okay. So they have token, but
they're not
even
relevant
worse
characters
than the other characters in Ty's story. You have one kid who
we don't need to go into their individual details.
Yeah, okay, whatever. And
whatever.
Shush. These kids are supposed to be a massive emotional impetus for Ty,
and that's all they ever become.
No, but you never meet them. Really get to know them. You never grow attached to them.
I grew a little. I like them a little bit, but
they're almost fixtures in the story, and that's it. They're like wall art occasionally. It's like, oh, the wall art got taken.
Yeah,
let's rescue the wall art.
They're plot points, like you said at the start.
And this is an egregious point because this is almost his main defining character to begin with the story. It drives his entire story arc, and even
it wouldn't be as much of a problem, except the kids, the children, their story arc is reduced to a plot point as well. So not only are they plot points, their story is plot point,
and their story is predictable. But it's like it's not even predictable. Where the predictable end leads to an engaging narrative element. It doesn't. It just kind of, oh, that happened, and I guess it happened now. I guess this is going to happen now. No, I guess it didn't. So that's one point, and then you have some other points is that Ty is the token or the titular moral character of the rebellion. He is moral at all points, and he's just he spills morality, and he's kind of the moral compass. Except he's never forced to stand by his morality. It's kind of boring because obviously more it's just the moral character. But at the same time, it does happen better than many.
It works. It's just it's well handled, but it doesn't ever really rise above the fact that it's what's the word? Not
cliche.
No, not cliche. Not cut out.
Carbon copy.
Archetype. It never surmounts the point of being an archetype,
and it never really influences the story in any way other than kind of like as we already discussed, adding the question of the morality to the rebellion. And lastly, with Ty's, he has this berserker stage that's introduced really early on in the book,
and he overcomes it
instantly, right? And well, first he falls into a little bit, going to kind of shove it off kind of easily. Then he overcomes it. Then he falls into it, and it's just the berserker stage. It has this whole title. It has this legend about it. It lacks teeth, and it was never given teeth. It was never really allowed to shine. It was
Another of the points that I low-key dislike about the book, which we'll get to in a moment. First, I would wish to commend the prose, which was really good without being like overly flowery or beautiful. Just
it was
enjoyable
solid to good prose. Didn't try too hard. Just throughout good prose.
It never reached the point of being extra evocative, but it was just very enjoyable to read throughout the book.
It never taxed you to read it. It read easy. It was never simple. So yeah, prose was really good. Not one of the standouts for the book, but just good.
Yeah. Now, my criticism. I kind of dislike the ending. Some of it being the recycle of the high point, but some of it is that the ending of the book did not set up a different. It set up for a sequel. It set up for a sequel that looked a lot like the first book.
Okay, I can see that. I kind of agree with them and I kind of don't, because the ending had a really nice high point that I enjoyed, and it was probably one of the few times where the imagery really came across well for me. It's like, oh, that's an impressive scene, right? Which obviously a really strong marker for the writing. But yeah, it did interest me in book 2, which means
I'm interested in book 2 from the context of Ella and the prose, but the ending has even slightly dimmed my interest in Ella because the
interesting parts of her story are done.
Yeah,
she is now almost her role is now
Ty point 2.
No, not even that. She is Ty's girlfriend because Ty is the king of the rebellion. So she's in desperate danger of becoming.
There's still some plot points to it because what she is, her history, etc., is barely touched on in this first book, and it's an enjoyable part of the character. You want to know what that is. It's just
apart from the mystery, she's very close to becoming the hero's girlfriend. Now, there is hope for that because she might still be kind of the moral be direction and kind of just help.
Basically, she just needs to get her. The author needs to introduce a story for her effectively in the second book. A story that is not just fight for the rebellion, because that's one of the enjoyable parts. She wasn't just a soldier in the rebellion; she was the informant, the other side.
Yes, and
the ending kind of paints her almost entirely into just being a soldier of the rebellion role because her story resolves.
Or she still has backlog story that needs to get resolved, and which is kind of where our main hope for the character comes from. But yeah, it's like the story that took place in the book is done.
I am thinking, are there other plot points, distinctive, unique, to mention?
Now we touched on the magic system. Oh, okay, so actually the author is setting up quite a few mysteries for the future, and he's doing it well. So that's something to look forward to. The author is holding his hand fantastically, which is something that I do not encounter too terribly often.
Yeah. The nice, well-paced book, all told.
And it's not like, big mystery in the future. Wait up and see it. It's, there's a mystery here, but he's holding that card close to just, you don't know if it's a big mystery.
Overly hard about it, saying you want
And
to know
it's
what
very,
this is.
it's not subtle, but it's not overwrought mystery, and that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's actually doing quite a bit for me, making me wonder what actually is going on. I think that's just about everything.
Yeah. Today, this review is sponsored.
We're not entirely sure about the wisdom of the sponsor or the sanity of the man behind it, but it
is
is
deeply
sponsored.
in question.
Yes, deeply.
I mean, just look at his name. Christopher King. He's like singing and keening. He's in the middle of a lament about how he's stuck in a game. That was a segue for the book title, which you don't know, do you?
I have no idea what the book title is.
The book title is called Stuck in the Game.
It sounds very interesting. We have not read it.
It sounds like a sticky situation. You need a hat.
I do not need a hat.
Look, I have one for you here.
Fine, I'll take this hat, but don't expect any more.
Very dapper. Mikey is most jealous.
Very jealous indeed.
But he also has like a bunch of houses. I don't know if you guys can
I
see
have
that.
a top hat. A top hat. Houses. Yeah. Top hat up here.
Look at his boat, though.
The bow
have
is very
nothing.
impressive, yes. I will give him that.
Exactly. Toodaloo, goodbye, au revoir, totes McGoats, floats down the boats.
Goodbye, our future friends.
What's up?